Well, like I told you, we'll be discussing something very important. It affects you and I, especially the vulnerable in the society. That is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015. That's what we'll be discussing. We'll get you to know what that act entails, what the framework of that act entails, how you can use that act to protect yourself, and there is an attack on that act that some of us hold on to as basis, as the framework for advocacy that we do just to deter people from violence against persons, especially those in the vulnerable, who are vulnerable to heinous crimes. Well, in the studio to discuss this very important subject matter is Amina Mohammed. She's a women's rights advocate. She's so much more. But thank you so much for being part of the program.
Thank you very much for having me today.
So the VAPP Act, a lot of people still do not know what it is. So let's start there. What is the VAPP Act?
So I'm going to start by saying that this particular conversation that we've been having for a while now, is one that I had never thought we would ever have to revisit, because I worked on making sure that the VAPP Act, that's the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act, is passed in several states, particularly in Sokoto State. So to think that I'm going to wake up, say about 9 years later, and hear that that particular act is about to be repealed and there is another one in its stead, is very much worrisome. Back to your question.
I know how that was just at the top of your mouth. You really needed to say that out.
Yeah, I have to say it out, because I woke up I remember when I found out when they forwarded the new proposed act to me, I was dumbfounded. I was confused for a while, because in my head I'm like, we're not doing this.
Does not really address.
Yes. So the VAPP Act, like it says, it's the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act. It's basically a document, a bill, a law that seeks to prevent, not only prevent, but also protect and also prosecute any form of violence against people. Like it says, Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act. It is a comprehensive document that protects me, it protects you, it protects young people, children, it protects virtually everybody, male, female, you name it, against all forms of violence. The document is quite very, very elaborate, right? It lists different kinds of crimes that are mostly violent. For example, there is an issue of FGM, that's female genital mutilation. It lists things like intimate partner violence. It's look at things like rape, you just name it. It's domestic violence, you just name the kind of violence you can actually think of. That document really addresses them and goes ahead to say that let's punish offenders this way. So I think in summary, that is the VAPP Act.
Wow, that is the VAPP Act. So it is being repealed.
Oh yes. So back to the repeal. I'd like to start by saying that why the repeal is quite very worrisome is that it's going to leave room for a lot of gaps and vulnerability. One, this is in addition to the fact that I work in the development sector, social justice mostly. I am the team lead for Connected Hands Family Health and Empowerment Initiative, that's SHAFHEN. And this is basically this space that we live in, day out. We see cases of violence here and there, and the VAPP Act has been that document that helps us to actually get whatever kind of justice that we're seeking to have. Now, what makes the repeal very worrisome? By the way, it's not just a repeal. The senator, that is Senator Issa Jibril, who is representing Kogi East Senatorial District, is actually saying that he has a new bill instead of the VAPP Act. What that means is that because there's a new bill, the VAPP Act has to be repealed first, because the two bills cannot exist at the same time, right? The two acts cannot exist at the same time because of their similarities. So it means that first there has to be a repeal before he would go ahead to introduce the process of his new acts, which is, I think, Acts to Prevent Violence Against Persons in Public and Private Places, something like that, however. Now, why it's very worrisome is that when Senator Issa Jibril raised to repeal this act and to introduce his own, a lot of it was very quiet. I think by the time we found out, a handful of us that work in this industry, that work in this space, by the time we found out there is a repeal for the VAPP Act, it has already passed second reading. That is very worrisome, because if you are doing something that's supposed to benefit the people, in my opinion, I think that it should be very loud.
Right.
It should not be surreptitious. It should be something that the people should be aware of. I mean, I am doing something that benefits you. Yes.
You should have your contribution towards it. You should be happy to even tell your constituents, this is what I am doing.
Exactly. So for us now, who are basically, permitted to say, champions in this whole thing, in making sure that these acts are passed, in making sure that people get justice, if we in the system do not even know, talk about the person in the grassroots. It means that they probably till now do not even have any idea. And it has passed second reading. Now that is one of the reasons why we are so worried, we are agitated, when we are scared. Because back to the repeal again, once this repeal happened, another thing that gives us room why we're really scared is that we are not really sure that Senator Isajibi is going to follow through with making sure that his act is passed.
So it will, VAPP will be on hold?
Exactly. VAPP will be repealed, which means it will no longer be applicable. It also, what it also means that every case of violence in court
at the moment
that has been using the VAPP Act as a guide now, yes, would have to more like start all over, because the VAPP Act will no longer be applicable because it has been repealed. So in that case, if he does not follow through with his new act, what that means now is that there will be no guiding document to get justice. And you'll agree with me that Nigeria is currently in a time where there is so much proliferation of violence, especially against women. Now back to Senator Issa's new bill. So we've gone through the bill, right, page by page, and we found out that as much as the VAPP Act, of course, since 2015 until now, it's been 9 years. It's only fair that there are
amendments could be done.
Thank you. So what we are looking at, what we would have expected is say, oh, let's propose an amendment, right?
Just to enhance.
Let's strengthen it. I mean, it's such a very elaborate document, but it's okay. I mean, it was put together by humans, so it's very natural for you to find a couple of holes here and there. Even we say it in the same way, like, oh, this particular thing VAPP should have done better here, but VAPP should have done better there. But if you look at, when you weigh the pros and cons, you see that the pros are actually very tremendous. In fact, the cons are almost inconsequential, if you allow me. Now, in comparison to the new bill, I tell you some things that worry us in the new bill. I give you an example. For the definition of rape in
the new bill,
in the VAPP Act, and the definition and the punishment that was stated. For example, if rape is rape, right?
Of course.
Rape is rape, regardless of like who is in the picture. Rape is rape. And there's a particular law for it. I think in the VAPP Act, there's a particular punishment, I beg your pardon. I think in the VAPP Act to be about 10 years or thereabouts with some fines. However, in his new bill, he did increase the punishment to 14 years, right? Which is, okay, welcome. However, it goes ahead again. I can't remember the particular section in that new bill that goes ahead to come and say that defilement of a child. Defilement of a child has a couple of punishments stated. Now, what worries us isn't rape rape?
It is.
Thank you. And I mean, typically, if we analyze it and we think it in our heads as humans, you will think that anybody who defiles a child should have way more punishment,
right,
than somebody who. But in his view, actually, punishment is lower, and the younger the child, the lower the punishment. That's worrisome. That's very worrisome. These are like it feels like it's a watered down version of the VAPP Act,
right?
Like, I don't know, we are in a time where the violence, I don't know if
it's exacerbated for some of us who read reports, but it got to second reading. Why do you think that happened? Is it that we're having a bunch of legislators who aren't really finding this important enough, or the women who, especially we have very little number of female legislators, and these are individuals. If you read about every single one there had to fight in this deeply patriarchal.
Some of them even had
their lives exactly, and their basis for being able to fight is because there's a framework as the VAPP Act that protects them. So why do you think, in spite of this, of course, limited number, it got to second reading? Nobody screamed out loud to say, where is the public hearing for this? Let public engagements. Call back your senators to ensure they do not vote for this new bill.
Well, you already say it. Nigeria, unfortunately, is quite. It's a society that is rooted in. Patriarchy is holding us as ransom in this part of the world, right? The patriarchy is, I don't know, is so conditioned that we have even women promoting patriarchy. The level of patriarchy that we experience in this country
is one that we are willing victims.
Yes. No, I wouldn't say willing victims, really, to be honest. I wouldn't say willing victims, because oftentimes it's just a condition right from when you were born on through your growing up. So, however, I think that the reason why it is passed is really, number one, very, very importantly attributed to patriarchy. Because like you said, we have very limited number of female legislators in the House, and that number can hardly do anything. In fact, it can hardly be heard, because we saw the incidents where, in fact, I think that one of them was shot down right in the House, and
although there was an apology later, though.
Please. I don't want to talk about that apology, because we know that apology. Okay, let me know digress. Let me know digress. So I think that it's the fact that it mostly affects women. Violence, because there have been cases of violence that have been reported day in, day out. If you notice, I think that so far I have not, the last time I had violence against a man that was widespread and reported was, I think, probably a year or two ago, right? It has been mostly against the woman. So I think that, in my opinion, right, and I know that I speak for a lot of people when I say that, this is because the violence against persons prohibitions, as much as it's supposed to protect everybody, mostly protects women. It mostly protects women.
Because naturally they are the ones susceptible.
They are marginalized. Right. They are very highly susceptible to these violent crimes. And so that's why it worries us, because we keep saying that we do not think honestly that the Nigerian legislatures, a man especially, are going to wake up and say that today we want to have the best interest of the women in this country at heart, because we have seen it play out all through. And we have not been able to point to one particular incident where they wholeheartedly, completely, without any force, without any sort of persuasion, promotes women's rights, protects women's rights. We have not seen that, and that is a problem. It will also mean that if this act is repealed, that it's years of work. I think until last year, there were states that have not passed the VAPP. I think
domesticated
domesticated VAPP Act rather. Kano until now has not even domesticated. From 2015 up until now, and advocacy to have them domesticated has not stopped. So what this will mean is that all of that resources, all of that time, all of that people that put in the work to make sure that this act is passed, all of it is going to go down the drain. And then, if peradventure he pushes for this new bill, what we are now going to have to do again is to start another work of going back to these states, 36 states, and one after the other, to go and start convincing them again to domesticate this new act. And that is
what do you think is the motivation behind this all, and for all who have been attacking this VAPP Act, which, like you said, gives this holistic and comprehensive protection to the vulnerable? Like we have also established that the vulnerable seem to have been the women and the children. Why do you think, as noble as this is, any human being would want to completely repeal this act?
So for that particular question, I think it's the same question we've been asking ourselves, and I don't know. I really hope that Senator Isajibo sees this, so that we really want to have a conversation with him. We want to ask, because I don't think anybody has been able to get a hold on him to ask him what is the motivation.
I have tried personally. Really.
Exactly. So you see what I'm saying. And funny thing is that he actually had this proposal right from 2022, and it didn't go through. Then he's bringing it back again 2 years later. So truly there has to be a very strong motivation, if you ask me. Is either we just do not care about the women and children in this country, or is he genuinely because there is a particular wisdom that he is seeing that we are not seeing? We'd really like to hear from him, because we don't want to put words in his mouth or be his mouthpiece and make suggestions and say, oh, this is his motivation for doing this. We wouldn't know. Probably, just probably, there is a very strong wisdom behind his new bill,
but we just want to hear it.
We honestly, sincerely want to hear it. We want to hear it. We want to have a conversation with you. We really just want to understand your thought process. You know, it's so important, because again, in his bill, let me intimate you with another information. That particular bill stops people like you now, people working in the media, to print out the names, faces of offenders.
Offenders, yeah.
That is worrisome because part of the
We've
thing
been
that
talking about shame,
name and
shame the perpetrators. Let's have people being deterred by this.
because we very well know that a lot of evil progresses when it is cloaked. A lot of evil progresses when there is silence, right? That's why oftentimes, for example, let me give you a wide funny example. When people want to go witchcraft, for example, now, right? Oftentimes when people go for witchcraft meeting, they don't go during the day. They go at night when everybody is asleep, right?
Well, because it's clandestine.
Exactly, very clandestine. So plenty of time. Evil progresses when it is.
You just made me laugh. Of all things to mention is witchcraft. You're so African.
I mean, that's what a lot of people actually really resonate with.
Right.
A lot of evil really progresses when it is clandestine. When you are not naming and shaming this victim, they are going to go ahead. Now, we have seen the news lately, allegedly, of somebody who had murdered not less than 3 women, right? You would, I think from 2017 he did one, 2018 he did one, 22 he did one, and now 2024 he did another one, right? And all of it, he was being protected. His family were, right, you know, hiding it, protecting him, closing it up. And that was why he kept it on. Trust me, if when he did it from the very first time, I mean, for God's sake, let the church for murder be murder, if you ask me. He wouldn't even be here to do. 3 women would have been spared. Now, this is the kind of thing that the VAPP seeks to bring to our tables and assist us.
But we've also had cases where people are wrongly accused. Some women mischievously would just accuse, especially talking about rape cases. Do you think this could be a means of addressing those issues?
I wouldn't. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't know his motivation, right? But if you
did that concern you? Because sometimes we saw that media attention on certain individuals who
we do when survivors come, we do not like to question their motive and have them, but at the same time we always advise that when in cases of rape, for example, when it happens, that you do not go and say, oh, you want to take a shower, you want to take a bath, like go with all of the evidence, because we need all of the evidence, because this is such a heinous and very, very serious crime.
Exactly.
So like there are already steps that are put in place to make sure that this kind of thing do not go on and on again. But back to the question about saying that media houses should not publish faces, and I think that if that was the case, then it was not well put in the act.
In the act, right?
Because how about we introduce a clause of unless you have
been convicted.
Exactly. But it just goes ahead to strictly say that, oh, do not publish faces, do not publish. And oftentimes, to be honest, I think that the only places where you would find cases that are already parading before they are even confirmed, you only see what's like allegedly.
Allegedly, suspect.
Yes, suspect. And it's mostly, excuse me, it's mostly on social media, right? But I think oftentimes the news agencies now, the media houses, TV station, they seldom carry news that have not been confirmed.
Right.
So, I mean, that is one issue of 10,001 others.
Exactly.
So
let's just round up now as we're running out of time. What do you what are CSOs doing at this moment just to ensure that it brings attention to this repeal? Because some of us just woke up and like, second reading, I didn't know it had gone that far.
So some of what we're doing at the moment, so ideally statutory in the constitution, before a bill is passed and assented and all of that, there are a couple of steps that has to be followed. I mean, after the second reading, we are supposed to look into a public hearing. So what we are doing as CSOs, we're calling the attention of people. We don't want a situation where we don't want something, the repeat of something like the national anthem, right? We just woke up and before we open our eyes and it was already like
oh God of creation.
So, exactly. So we don't want it. We want this time for a complete, true public hearing where the public, and when I say the public, I do not mean that the public that were orchestrated and created immediately, just that are of the same view. We want diversity in the public that will be invited to have this conversation. So as CSOs, we are pushing, we are spreading the word and telling people about the VAPP Act and the fact that it is under threat. We are calling on people to protect the VAPP Act. Let us talk about an amendment and not a repeal. So if you go to social media, if you want to know more about the VAPP Act, you could go to social media, you could go to plenty of CSO. The word is out there. We are trying to localize the language to make sure that everybody, it will be available for people to understand in Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, you name it, and not just, you know, the Queen's English and here and there. We are also doing things like this that you and I are having, this conversation that we're having.
Exactly.
Basically raising awareness, because at this point, that is what we can do. We do not make the laws, we do not pass them. But
can only,
with this, we believe that we are representing the best interest of every Nigerian, regardless of where you are, where you come from. We are representing the best interest, regardless of your gender, regardless of your age. We are trying to make sure that posterity remembers that this fight is very pivotal, and we took it as such and we fought it to the end. So we are basically putting out the word, creating awareness, trying to engage these senators and everybody, calling on everybody to engage their constituents, to spread the word and tell people about the VAPP Act and why it should not be repealed. Because I think that one of the problems that we face is thinking of that, oh, it will not happen to me.
Yeah.
The thing is, to be honest,
you never know.
You never
With
really
life,
know.
you never know.
Trust me, for example, the lady who was recently killed, if she had known that her friend was going to kill her, trust me, she's not even going to be friends with him in the beginning. So you never really know. It just really happens. And even if it doesn't happen to you, it will happen to somebody who's
really
dear to your heart. So,
right.
well, you might need the VAPP Act to protect you at that time, and you'd find out that it's not there. So let's not allow that to happen.
Amina Mohammed, thank you so much. Women's and girls' rights advocate. She's a poet, she's a writer. She presently serves as the team lead for the Connected Hands for Family Health and Empowerment Initiatives. Thank you so much for being part of the program. I see the passion in you. Let's do this. Let's do this, especially as women who are often susceptible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.